Hello, I lost YouTube. One sec. Let me find YouTube again. Howdy, welcome to the stream. Today we are going to be working on preparation for a project that I've been working on, thinking about for a bit. So I actually want to be on the other side. Pow. Now I'm over here. So something that I have been thinking about for quite a while is that I would really like to learn JavaScript. And you may be thinking to yourself, Rachel, why do you want to learn JavaScript? Couple of reasons. Number one, actually, I'm going to start a section above this. Why do I want to learn JavaScript? Also, prepare yourself. There's going to be a lot of typos, and we're just going to have to be okay with that. So why do I want to learn JavaScript? The main thing is that people are starting to do machine learning in JavaScript kind of a lot. So right now, I think if you're interested in getting into machine learning or statistics, my number one recommended language, if you're interested more in the analytics side, would probably be R. If you're interested more in building machine learning systems, probably Python, although you can build both in both. If you really are all in on iOS and the Apple ecosystem, then Swift. But the question, can you hear me? One sec. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna make sure that nobody can't hear me. Does that make sense? Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. So the Swift, if you are really all in on the, you can hear me. Thank you, Alejandro. If you're really all in on the iOS ecosystem, sometimes I just get these little like heebie-jeebies like, is the stream working? And then the fourth language that I've seen a lot of people talking about, thank you, Rayanne, appreciate it, is JavaScript. And JavaScript is no surprise, it's the most popular language in the world, so most popular language in the world, so a lot of people use it. A lot of people use it for different things. A lot of people know it. Even if people do know Python, sometimes they'll also know JavaScript, or if they do know R, they'll also know JavaScript. There actually might be more overlap in R because of some of the visualization stuff, but not super important. And it's used everywhere, right? In things that are on the internet, which is, you know, a lot of things. How about Julia? Yeah, so I think Julia is conceptually really interesting. I see, hello Hector, welcome. I see the need for Julia. It's very performant in particular, and it sort of has gotten around some of like the weird legacy stuff, both in Python and in R. I want to say it's typed. I want to say it's strongly typed, but do not quote me on that. I haven't used it a whole bunch because the last time I was sort of had capacity for learning a programming language, Julia didn't support anything but ASCII characters. And if you're working in NLP at all, you will have run into the fact that there are many non-ASCII characters in, pick your body of text. There's going to be some stuff in there that I'll show you for a loop. Kitty didn't know it was the most popular. It is, yeah. I might have the tab open. I think the Stack Overflow survey is probably the best thing to Google for that, but this is a screenshot. This is a screenshot of the Stack Overflow stuff on, well, that didn't work. Pop you out and then bring you over. There we go. So JavaScript number one, just by number of percentage of respondents that have used it, so about 2/3 of the percentage about two-thirds of respondents to the Stack Overflow survey had used JavaScript at some point, and then HTML, SQL, and Python. And I've actually done a fair amount with HTML. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily my favorite, but I do use it, although mostly I use Markdown these days. Anyway, so yes, Julia's good for what it's good for. If you are not really in the weeds of statistical computing, it probably wouldn't be the first language I recommend for you. And then that's just my personal opinion. There's some people that definitely would be the first language they recommend. And I got real sidetracked. Is R last? It's what I learned first. I mean, R is a specialized language, right? The number of people who need to do statistical computing is just smaller than the number of people who need to build websites. That doesn't mean it's not good for what it's good for. And like Python has a really big community, but even in Python, the majority of people aren't doing machine learning, right? There's a couple big web developments sections, little bits. People use it for like all sorts of backend stuff. So it's a really Python is a much more heterogeneous population than R users. Yeah. Anyway, also I love R. R is great. What was I talking about? Programming languages. So it's very popular. It's used everywhere. And the thing that really, for me, makes it very exciting is it allows for greater privacy in ML models. It allows for greater privacy in machine learning models because it can, you can do things completely client-side, right? So you can do everything on the user's computer without having to send requests back and forth to an API. And of course you can do that with other things, but JavaScript, like most browsers will run JavaScript and will run JavaScript in the browser on the client side. So I feel like there's a lot of potential there for really building privacy preserving and that type of application. So with that in mind, you might have guessed from the stream title, I'm a big fan of project-based learning, which means I have a thing I want to do and I need to figure out how to do the thing. I mean, that's basically how I used R, how I learned R the first time, because I wanted, not that I learned it twice, because I had data that I needed to analyze. So the thing that I want to build with JavaScript, and we'll see whether or not I actually get there, is I want to build a privacy preserving in browser text anonymizer, right? So that's what I want to build. So I want to build something that you can launch in the browser, put some text in, and there's going to be like some NLP that will run to make your life better. Katie says same. Yeah, I'm assuming this is about like you had data that you needed to have analyzed. Yeah, having a strong end goal is, I find, very helpful for learning new things. So some things within that I think would be really helpful would be pronoun replacement, I guess. Yeah, pronoun replacement to lead to less information about gender identity being transmitted. Sorry, I'm very, very hand wavy right now. And then the other thing that I really like to do is detect and remove proper names. So those are the two things that I want to do. Neither of these are super machine learning-y. This bit could be the detecting and removing proper names, but I think that it could also very much be just sort of like rule-based. And so the third thing that would, I think, help me, you know, explore this more and also potentially make it more useful, we'll see, would be seek to seek. So in terms of difficulty of tasks, I think the pronoun replacement is going to far and away be the easiest, at least in English. At the outer bounds, we have maybe a couple dozen pronouns, right? There just aren't that many pronouns in English. And yes, I am including neopronouns in there, but again, not a whole lot of those. excuse me, comparatively. Detecting and removing proper names, I think, is going to be a little bit more difficult if it is formatted text, right? If it's like very standardized and formalized, then we can use punctuation, but it's possible that we're not going to be able to. So I'll actually pop this under here. Capitalization. And this is an approach that will work in English, for example, but won't work in German, where all nouns are capitalized. And then perhaps using some sort of lookup model. And then finally, and these again are just sort of like in degree of increasing difficulty. And how do I know that they are difficult? Practice. So like knowing about NLP tasks is something that I'm bringing in. And that would be one tip would be to find a project that overlaps with something you already know about. So I wouldn't, for example, do a computer vision model in JavaScript because I don't have a lot of experience in computer vision, so I'd have to learn the computer vision part and the JavaScript part. Instead, doing NLP tasks in JavaScript, I'm already, pretty good at NLP, I would say. And then the JavaScript part is like the second part that I'm learning. So I've got half of the equation, and now I need to balance it, I guess, like chemistry class. And then the third one would be using some sort of learned NER technique. So that's named entity recognition or name detection, I think is the other name of the task, or the similar task. Let me actually look that up real quick. Name detection in NLP. Named entity recognition, person name detection, named entity recognition. Yeah, I think most people are going to call this named entity recognition rather than name detection. So, do that. This requires a rule. This requires a database. This requires training data to train a model, and rules are usually faster and easier than those other things. So again, sort of in order of increasing difficulty, and this one's going to be like rule-based lookup. Using a list of all pronouns. I don't want to say all or most because there's almost certainly going to be some neopronouns that I miss. But yeah. And Judy says, I learned JavaScript this week for a project. A fun coincidence. Project looks interesting. Keep it up. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's, again, very popular. A lot of people are learning it. So I'm also looking forward to finding lots of good learning resources. A little, sorry, I wrote it as anonymization. That is in fact part of that word. I did some little, so if you know what an apron is, it's like a piece of overclothing you wear to protect other clothing. Originally it was a naprin, and then the N was, reanalyzed as being part of the determiner that came before it. So it went from a naprin to an apron, and I was sort of doing the same thing. Welcome to Not Very Interesting Anecdotes with Rachel. So this is what I want to build, and sorry, learning goals should be things that you can do. So I want to be able to know enough to do this. So what do I need to do? Part of it, I already sort of have a pretty good idea of what I would need to do, right? I'm familiar with the approaches here, and I can, I know the search terms to look up, basically, to find examples. But there's a bunch of other stuff that I don't know how to do. So let's start. Actually, let's start about things to learn about, and I'm going to pop this up first, and then I'm going to do steps. So things that I currently don't know about. And some of these you're going to be like, Rachel, it seems like an obvious thing that you'll be able to look up. And if you have learned a language before, then yes, maybe that is obvious to you. But like the first time I learned Python, I learned it in like a little embedded widget. it was Python 2. It was back in the day. And then I wanted to do a Python project and I had no idea like how to get Python onto my computer. So the first thing that I'm going to need to learn about is how to install JavaScript. And I think the JavaScript package manager is npm. And I'm going to look that up real quick. And the reason I think that is for a long time, I thought people were just writing NumPy weirdly. Let's see. Build amazing things. The node package manager, the npm registry. Oh, let me pop this over. You're not gonna, huh? What if I ask nicely? There we go. So this is a company. Apparently it stands for Nonchalantly Performs Magic. I think it actually stands for Node Package Manager based on the fact that it says Node Package Manager here. And this is a cutesy marketing thing that is confusing to me as someone who does not know what the acronym stands for. Anyway, for a couple of years, I thought people were just saying NumPy really weird. And I'm pretty sure it's a different thing. So another thing that I'm going to need to learn how to do is figure out how to install packages, which I've never used before. I don't know if I need like a key or what. Node Package Manager. See, I've already learned my first JavaScript thing. How to use an npm. Also, I know that one of the things you can do with JavaScript, and these are things that I've just sort of like learned by talking to people and like sitting next to engineers who do work with JavaScript, how to make it show up in a browser locally, ? Can I just like open a JavaScript file and it'll automatically open in Firefox or something? Will that happen? Carrie says, my avatar is very cool. Well, thank you. I don't know how to do that. We'll find out. Maybe y'all do, but I certainly don't. So that's definitely a thing that is on the to-do list. And these things I don't intend, but I expect that they will take quite a bit to get right. Can I use it in VS Code? I'm guessing yes, VS Code is a pretty fully featured IDE. Like I don't think I can use JavaScript in a Jupyter notebook. Actually, I don't know that's true. So if you're unfamiliar, Jupyter is a way of interleaving Julia, Python, and R. They support other kernels as well with text, and then you execute the code cell by cell, and you see the output immediately below that cell. It's a very popular data science thing. I don't know if I can use JavaScript in Jupyter. I know that there are packages that will let you create visualizations using JavaScript, but I don't think, is there a JS kernel? I think JavaScript code can be run in Jupyter, but you have to do it within a wrapper of another language, which honestly I'm not upset about. I think I'd be perfectly fine with that. This might actually be easier than trying to set up a local developer environment. And I'm going to put these all under a header. So how to set up a local developer environment. I'm sure I've misspelled like 60% of the things that I've typed, but that's okay. So boop. Was I using tabs or spaces before? I think I was using spaces. Yeah, I was. Okay. Shh. So these are all things that I think are part of the local developer environment question. And I expect this to take a while. Again, this is like a tool set I've never used before. I don't really know how it works, so it's going to take me some time to learn that. So once I have my environment set up, then I'm going to need to learn about like SHAP graphs. What's a SHAP graph? Oh, look that up. S-H-A-P-G-R-A. Not how you spell SHAP. Oh, is this like a thing that you can show in the let's see. There are many things I like about Firefox. It's a little bit rough to try and open new windows. Shapely additive explanations is a game theoretic approach to explain the output of any machine learning model. It connects optimal credit allocation with local explanations using the classic Shapely values from game theory and their related extensions. Oh, and I'm guessing this is interactive. Yeah. I think that this and like a lot of the mapping, like interactive mapping stuff that gets rendered once you use NB-convert and create the HTML file, I think a lot of that is done using JavaScript. So that might be an option for us, I think. So my preference would be for this to be like a web page that somebody could visit and interact with. So the option would either have to be that they can run a Jupyter notebook locally, or that they, because if I'd render the Jupyter notebook and it would no longer be interactive, it would be like the static HTML version. So I think that it might work for local development. Got myself a note. Note will probably, could be good for local development. Not for, are you gonna wrap for me? Fabulous. Can I scoot this over? Nope, okay. Probably not for final deployment, because I want it to be like a page that you can go to and then you put in the text. Actually, let's do a little bit of design up here so that I can be very clear about what I want, because that's going to help me decide how to build the project and figure out what to look up. So I want a page where a user can enter text and have it anonymized. Not true anonymization. So it's just going to remove the names and the pronouns. It is not going to handle any other sort of anonymizing information. Colab and Streamlit. Yeah, Streamlit must use, Colab is also just like if you're unfamiliar, it's a hosted interface on top of Jupyter Notebook. So much like Kaggle Notebooks, also owned by Google. How many hosted Jupyter solutions does Google have? More than that. Oh, that's not fair. I don't actually know about the like data lab. I think there was one like in cloud as part of GCP, and I don't know the current state on that. Directly in the browser without having it sent to a server. Right. And I came up, Streamlit for sure, yeah. So I came up with this as a idea because it makes sense for this to be done client side, because if I have something that's not anonymous that I want to be anonymous, I don't want to be sending that out to somebody's server who knows where. You know, I want to be like a little bit careful with that information. And also text processing should be fairly lightweight. I'm not super worried about like having to do a bunch of like visualization stuff. It should run. Pure text processing, as opposed to other types of machine learning tasks, generally doesn't take that much compute. And as a result, if my JavaScript is very poorly optimized and runs very slow, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. I mean, famous last words, but that's my hope. So, yeah. Although that's a good thing to add to our things to learn. Optimization, what do you call it? Like, it's like a pitfall that people do a lot. Anti-patterns. Avoid. Are there any specific processes that are very slow / memory hungry? I don't know. A good example of this would be in R. I'll switch to tab, sorry. A good example of this in R would be for loops. In R, everything is indexed. period. Like everything has an index. And when you loop over something, you're usually allocating new memory every loop and re-indexing it. So it's very slow. And the reason everything has an index is so that you can vectorize it quickly, because like the assumption is you're going to be doing a bunch of linear algebra from the get-go. So it's really been designed to make that as speed efficient as possible. Yeah, so like if you are coming from another language, makes perfect sense that your first thing you would do in R is write a for loop, and you'd be like, R is so slow, I don't get it. And it's just like a quirk of the language that it's a bad thing to do. TensorFlow.tf.js or ML5.js. Ooh. Do you know this? I have definitely seen that there's like different TensorFlow packages. The TensorFlow.js, I think I've seen. Oh my gosh. Boop. There we go. Cool. Friendly machine learning for the web, artificial intelligence in the browser. Yeah, okay. Build on TensorFlow. TensorFlow makes sense. It's very lightweight. It's very low level. It's fast. It is not the most learner friendly the first time you give it a shot, which is why there's so many libraries on top of it to make it easier to use. But broader public understanding of machine learning. Okay. All right, here we got an example of some code snippets. So I'm guessing, oh, this is a good place for me to just sort of figure out what this is going to look like. So it looks sort of similar to Python to me a little bit. Can I? Ooh, gotcha. There we go. No V mapping in JS Sage. I don't know what that is. Or Sage, S-A-D-G-E. Look that up. It's an emote. Okay, gotcha. You're saying, no, okay, I thought Sage was a JavaScript library, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. So that's good to know about. And so I think I'm gonna actually add that as another section, ecosystem. What ML packages are available? Because you know, especially as like your first thing in the language, writing a very low level package for something, maybe that is something that is delightful to you, but for me, I think I would be just very frustrated. So it was, what was this? ML5.js. I'm just gonna, and then TF.js, which I had definitely heard about previously, which is, I believe that one is from Google. That's the official TensorFlow porch. They're emotes. Thank you. JavaScript is similar to Python. Yeah, did I close the window I was just looking at? Pretty sure I did. Yeah, let's see. So what I was doing was looking at a little code snippet. Okay, so create an image classifier with MobileNet. Okay, so this looks like maybe, I'll zoom in a little bit. I think this is maybe a little bit small. Woohoo. Doop. There we go. So it looks like this is a constant, and it's called classifier. I'm guessing that's the name. And this is the package image classifier MobileNet. So I'm guessing this is like a built-in thing inside the package. And then on model ready. And, oh no, it's a semicolon language. That makes sense. So it just means that every line needs to have a semicolon after it, and I guarantee you I'm about to forget them 5,000 times. That's okay. When I took computer science intro courses in undergrad, it was in Java, so it's something that I'm familiar with. It doesn't require semicolons. This is delightful. Let's pop that over there. Not required. The best note. Close enough. The best news I've heard all day. That sounds good. Okay, and then here we have an image, document.query selector, my image. Okay, so I'm guessing that this is going to be stuff that is built into JavaScript. So this is a way to like get an image. And I don't know, this might be inherited from like the specific website. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure this all out, and how like how a JavaScript program is written, right? How you do the dang thing. And then let prediction equal classifier dot predict. Okay, so this is definitely like a method of this object using the image got results. I don't know what this is or where it's coming from. And then there's a function. So got results, error results. Okay, so I guess this is a way to like handle it if an error has occurred, maybe. And then console.log, and then console. So is this like the developer console? Will this be like printed? Ooh, I don't know. Pseudomate says selector is basically getting something from the HTML side with image as an ID. So this bit here. Okay, so this is going to be something that's like uploaded or something on HTML. Okay, console.log equals print. Okay, so this is the print statement. All right, fun. I do like the documentation and sort of like the vibe of this library, so I might go with this over TensorFlow.js again if we need to, because I think that that's very much the last step that we would get to. Sorry, seek to seek stands for sequence to sequence, which is just sort of a general class of machine learning problems. Because I think the first things that I'm going to need to learn about are how to do string manipulation, because that's going to be the majority of stuff. So let me do this. String manipulation. Relationship to HTML. So I've worked with Jupyter quite a bit, and like I have kind of an idea of how that works, but I'm guessing that there's like a deeper relationship and like passing back and forth that like does something. I don't know. I'm getting the sense of like this is something that I don't know about that I need to learn about. Yeah. And then also I think another thing that's really going to be important is like general class stuff. Right. Actually, I think object-oriented is going to be more general object-oriented stuff for JavaScript specifically. So I, like, my history's been more focused on functional programming, and I think that JavaScript tends to be a little bit more object-oriented, and just looking at that code snippet, that feels right. So how does, like, inheritance work and stuff like that? How does inheritance work? And just like what it's like, because that's something that I don't know a lot about. Pseudobase says the creator of ML5JS is a friend of the creator of P5JS, the train guy, Schiffman. I don't know what that is either. So this is, I gotta pop it out over here first. So P5JS is a JavaScript library for creative coding with a focus on making coding accessible and inclusive for artists, designers, educators, beginners, and everyone else. It is free and open source. Okay. It has a full set of drawing functionality. That looks better. I don't know that it's right, but it looks better. I feel like this is probably this thing. Drawing functionality, maybe? All right, so I think this is a good exercise for y'all to see. I'm just gonna add mention it here. So I think this is a good exercise for y'all to see sort of like where the gaps in my knowledge are, right? So like I know that I'm going to need to know how to set up my local development environment, and I know that there's like a lot of stuff I don't know, right? Like I think the ecosystem is actually probably a good next thing to jump in to. Boop. And then I think these are actually going to come before the anti-patterns, right? Because optimization is like the last thing once you understand how it works. Understring manipulation, it's not exactly the same, but I think it's pretty similar. How do I get the text in? How do I pass text out? How do I print stuff in the middle of a block of code? Like just an example, like how do I do little testy print statements to see like what's actually happening and test my understanding? How do I tell if something is a class, method, etc.? Is there a capitalization scheme I should know about? Right? Like I just genuinely don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm just like, I don't know him. This person, I think everybody knows him. Maybe not. I mean, I also like, I think it's true. Everyone has their like little corner of stuff they work on, and nobody knows everything, right? Do I prefer functional programming? I mean, it depends. For things like analytics and ETL, like that's very functional, right? You're chaining together a list of things that you are doing to something, and the output is passed on very fluidly. So I think it makes sense for a lot of the tasks that I've done, certainly in the past, as like general data science, machine learning, etc. But I have, in the depths of time, I was trained in object-oriented programming, and I do work with a lot of Python libraries, and I look at them and I'm like, yes, I have seen this previously. So I am sort of familiar with it. I've just done more functional programming professionally. Functional programming languages similar to Haskell. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that that's true, but the languages that I use a lot, you can use as functional programming. You could use to do functional programming, or you can use to do, more object-oriented programming. Like you can do functional stuff in Python. It's a little bit funky. I think it's more common in R. Yeah. I'm gonna look something up before I say something dumb. Let me just, or not dumb, but like ignorant. Check something out. I gotta accept Stack Overflow's cookie setting. There we go. Okay, so the thing that I was looking up was whether or not SQL was a functional language. Fact deals with relational database and make a functional language the way it should be implemented. What are relation-based equate with functional and categorizing functional? Concept of relation, declarative versus imperative. Declarative languages describe what something is. Imperative languages describe how to do something. Functional programming centers on a few core ideas. Functions for class citizens. Yep. Higher order functions, yes. And then a pure function has no other side effects. A pure function cannot do any IO, cannot read or modify any global state, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Okay, no is the answer. Oh, I was not very zoomed in. I wanted to know if SQL was a functional language. The answer is no, but it has some qualities of functional languages. Um, there's a framework in JavaScript called ELM. I think it is a little functional. Look it up. All right. A delightful language for reliable web applications. Yeah. No runtime exceptions. First argument to drop is not what I expect. Let's drop string input to int calls produces, but drop needs the first argument to be. Maybe with default. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't really, I think this is going to be for me like my first big application development project I've ever worked on. So I'm definitely going to be doing a lot of learning, which actually I'm going to add here, just like application development in general. Because many machine learning projects incorporate some aspect of application development, but it's never been sort of my core focus. And I want to learn. Final Spartan says, what are we working on today? So, great question. We're working on a learning plan, and I'll put all this on my GitHub. I'm going to put all the stuff for this project in a single repo. So I want to learn JavaScript for the following reasons. People are starting to do machine learning in it, kind of a lot. And as someone who works in machine learning, I want to be able to help people out, particularly as a developer advocate in the machine learning space. It's very popular, and in particular, it allows you to run machine learning models that are privacy preserving, so you don't send the information back and forth. So I want to build an in-browser text anonymizer, right? So you upload text and some stuff is done to it using JavaScript. How? We're going to figure that out together. And then the text is returned all in browser, nothing sent to the server. So that's my goal for this project. And then I've got like different sub-goals. So there's a bunch of stuff that I don't know, which we've listed out here, sort of in general. And actually, I'm going to add another thing in general, like all the stuff I don't know. And one of the big benefits of, for example, knowing about natural language processing, because this is an NLP problem, and having, having learned a language before, a computer language before, I mean, also a human language, hopefully, obviously, is that I do have like a little bit of an idea of the shape of learning a new programming language. Like I've done it before and I sort of have a general idea of things that I'm not going to know, but I haven't learned this programming language before, which means that there are going to be things that in retrospect, I'll be like, it's very important that you learn that I just don't know yet. So and give myself lots of grace, and yeah. All right. So steps. The number one thing that we are going to have to do is we are going to need to install JavaScript and get it running locally. I don't know how to do that. I'm expecting that that's going to take longer than I expect. Likely to take longer than I expect. I don't know, maybe it's actually a very nice setup experience, but I've spent enough time in dependency hell in other projects that we'll find out. We'll find out what it's like. You don't install JavaScript. But like something has to interpret it, right? It comes with every browser by default. Okay. So I've already installed JavaScript. Good. Interesting. See? And this is already me learning stuff. Apparently, it's already in all browsers, so I have it already. wrong about that taking longer than I expected. Okay, figure out how to get JavaScript running locally. So what I want to do is have a file, write whatever the JavaScript hello world looks like in it. And if you're not familiar, I'm guessing most people are, but Hello World is like the first program you write in a specific language. And it's traditionally, it just prints Hello World. It's a web page now. I can see it. Maybe. Again, like I've never used this language framework, so I'm excited to learn more. Find a way to get the user to supply text. And then the second thing I want to do is a very simple transformation on that text. So I'll probably do something like all lowercase or something. So I want to build like an anonymizer, so the transformation is going to become more complex, but first I need to figure out like how to do a simple transformation so I can make it more complex later on. A more complex transformation, replacing X with something else. And then after that, then I'll try pronoun replacement by rule, and then how to store / read in other supporting data. And this, I'm pretty sure this is what JSON is for. As I recall, I think JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, so I'm pretty sure I can just like use that format to read in the data that I need. Yeah, so I think that should be good. And then at that point, continue to work on improve anonymization stuff in keeping with the learning goal above. And then 7 is going to be, once I'm happy with that, make it look a bit prettier. I mean, it could be pretty by default, but when I learned HTML, it was not. So I'm assuming I'm going to need a little bit of gussying. And then for host it, I think I still have a DigitalOcean droplet running. Actually, I think I paused the droplet I have my bot in, but host it somewhere. So people can use it. Yeah, so that is my plan so far. And I was thinking, as I was writing this, I was like, oh yeah, do I need to do some sort of logging? I don't think I do, because it's going to be all client side. So I'm not going to know what's happening, right? Like, I think I will know that people will make a request to load the page, right? And then the JavaScript stuff will get loaded. And then once it's loaded, they can interact with it locally, and I'm not going to hear about it. I shouldn't hear about it because it should be privacy preserving. Make sure it is privacy preserving. Anyway, and I know this is a little bit of a toy project, but I'm almost positive it already exists. But it's something that I think will really help me learn about learn about JavaScript. And then 9 would be yeah, and just go back to 6. So this is going to be sort of a continual process in keeping with all the stuff that I've been thinking about. So Heroku's a good service. Yeah, I do like Heroku. I've used it before for some stuff, but I think that there's like well, I also don't know like how big JavaScript stuff tends to be. I'm guessing that it tends to be a little bit smaller than Python stuff. Because it's got a load, so it's got to be like more lightweight. Yeah, I don't know. Where was I going with this? The Heroku's free tier is pretty small. So I guess I could just pay for it. That could be fine too. Okay, so I think that this is gonna be my plan. So tomorrow I'm not gonna stream because I've got some stuff, and JavaScript is more annoying. That is what I hear from people who use JavaScript. There's a lot of preserving. Does that look better? Anyway, spelling is fake and made up, and it's okay if we do bad at it. That's my stance on it. So, and now that we've actually done this, I'm gonna pop steps above things to learn. And I think also it will just be nicer to read if I get rid of this white space between sections. Yeah. So, we've got a plan. So I know why I want to learn it, which is what I'm going to look at when I am annoyed at JavaScript. So I'm like, that's right, that's why I'm doing it in the first place. I've got a specific learning goal. So this is something concrete that I will know whether I have achieved or not. And sort of different things to break down within that will make it, more and more complex. I'm actually going to pop this up to the top. Where I just describe the specific thing that I want to build, and then the steps. So figure out how to get JavaScript running locally. Already installed via web. That looks like the wrong number of B's. Web browser. There's probably a space in it. Not a whole lot of words in English with double B's. I mean, there are some, but there's not a whole bunch. Stubble. So, and we have steps to follow to go around. Wii browser, add a space. Yeah. Again, spelling is fake and made up, and we can do whatever we want. As long as you're consistent. So we've got concrete steps of what to do next and how to figure it out. And I am also got all these things that I know I don't know yet. And then, the mystery, which is all the things that I don't know yet. Which I'm sure in retrospect will be the most important things. But for example, you don't have to install JavaScript. That's not, you have already installed JavaScript. Let me put it that way. So that's my process. And that's about all I've got for today. And we'll probably come back, I'm thinking on Monday. So I'm thinking of streaming at this time, probably Monday through Thursday next week, to see if we can get to the point where we have something up and running. And we'll see. I'm hopeful. And then I'll pop this up on my GitHub so folks can follow along if you're interested. Yeah, so I'll see y'all then. And if you are going to the NACL workshop, North American Association of Computational Linguistics annual meeting workshop on teaching NLP tomorrow, I will be there doing a panel. So that should be fun. Yeah, so I'll see you there if you're there. Otherwise, I'll be back on Monday for more live streaming, and we're going to build a JavaScript application together. Fun. All right, and thanks for y'all's help, by the way. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the future. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great day. Ooh, I have an outro. I don't know if you noticed, but I changed all my branding and stuff. So I've got an outro, and I will see y'all later. Bye.